In the heart of the forest, where the trees stood tall and the rivers flowed smoothly, a community of animals lived peacefully. Among them was Hare, known far and wide for his incredible speed. However, along with his swiftness came a great deal of pride. Hare often spent his days boasting to the other animals about how fast he was. "No one can beat me," he would say, hopping from tree to tree. The animals, tired of hearing Hare's arrogance, murmured among themselves. No one dared to challenge him, fearing the ridicule that would follow such an attempt. One afternoon, as Hare's boasting reached its peak, a voice broke through the crowd. It was Tortoise, the slowest creature in the forest. "I will race you, Hare," Tortoise said calmly. The other animals were stunned into silence. Tortoise! How could he, the slowest of them all, challenge Hare? Hare, on the other hand, burst into laughter. "You!" Hare exclaimed. "You'll race me! This will be the easiest race of my life." The animals exchanged glances, wondering if Tortoise had lost his mind. But Tortoise didn't waver. The challenge was accepted, and the race was set for the next morning. The entire forest buzzed with excitement. Could there be more to this challenge than met the eye? The next day, the animals gathered in the clearing, eager to witness the unlikely race between Hare and Tortoise. The race course was simple: a path through the forest, leading to the big oak tree on the other side. Hare stood at the starting line, stretching and preparing with a cocky smile on his face. Tortoise, slow and steady, took his place at the line, his eyes focused on the path ahead. He wasn't concerned with the crowd or Hare's smug attitude. He knew this race wasn't about speed. It was about determination. "On your mark, get set, go," shouted Owl, the race's official referee. In an instant, Hare shot forward like a flash of lightning, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. He disappeared down the path before most of the animals could blink. The crowd cheered, but their excitement quickly faded as they turned their eyes to Tortoise. He had barely moved a few feet, inching forward one slow step at a time. The animals whispered among themselves, doubting that Tortoise would even make it halfway. But Tortoise remained unfazed. With every step, he kept his eyes on the path ahead, determined to keep moving no matter how long it took. As Hare raced through the forest, the wind rushing past his long ears, he couldn't help but laugh to himself. "This is too easy," he thought. The race was practically over in his mind. He had left Tortoise far behind, so far that he hadn't even seen him in the distance. Feeling overconfident, Hare decided to slow down. "I have all the time in the world," he thought. Ahead, he spotted a shady tree, the perfect place to rest. "Why not take a quick nap? I'll still win easily," Hare said. And with that, he curled up beneath the tree. Meanwhile, back on the race course, Tortoise continued his steady pace. He wasn't fast, but he was consistent. Every step brought him closer to the finish line. The animals watched as Tortoise made his slow progress, some of them even beginning to cheer him on. "Go, Tortoise!" they shouted. It wasn't flashy or impressive, but Tortoise's persistence was something to admire. He never looked back and never stopped. Even when he seemed tired, he kept going. As Hare snored beneath his tree, the forest began to realize that this race might not be as one-sided as they first thought. Hours passed, and Hare remained fast asleep under the shady tree. Meanwhile, Tortoise had been inching closer and closer to where Hare had stopped. The crowd of animals began to murmur with excitement as they realized that Tortoise was catching up. Finally, Tortoise reached the spot where Hare was napping. The animals watched in awe as Tortoise quietly passed by the sleeping Hare without a second glance. Hare, still lost in his dreams, had no idea what was happening. Tortoise kept moving forward, slow and steady, but now he was ahead. The finish line was still far away, but for the first time, Tortoise was in the lead. The animals couldn't believe their eyes. "Is it possible?" they whispered. Could Tortoise actually win? The forest was alive with chatter, and more animals began cheering for the determined Tortoise, who kept plodding along without hesitation. Suddenly, Hare awoke with a start. The sun was lower in the sky, and he realized he had been asleep far longer than he intended. "Oh no!" he exclaimed, leaping to his feet. He looked around, expecting to see Tortoise far behind him. But to his shock, Tortoise was nowhere to be seen. Panic surged through Hare's veins as he raced down the path, his legs pumping as fast as they could carry him. "I can't believe I fell asleep," he thought. "But I can still win this. I'm faster than Tortoise. I just need to catch up." Hare dashed through the forest, his heart pounding in his chest. As he sped toward the finish line, he could see the crowd of animals ahead, cheering and shouting. But something was wrong. They weren't cheering for him. They were cheering for Tortoise. Hare's eyes widened in disbelief as he saw Tortoise approaching the finish line, still moving at his slow and steady pace. Hare sprinted with all his might, desperate to reach the finish line before Tortoise. The animals were on their feet, their eyes locked on the two racers. The tension was electric as Hare closed the gap, but it was too late. Just as Hare was about to reach the finish line, Tortoise crossed it first. The forest erupted in cheers, and Hare skidded to a halt, panting and bewildered. "How did this happen?" Hare gasped. He had been so sure of his victory. But as he stood there, defeated, Tortoise simply smiled. "Slow and steady wins the race," Tortoise said calmly. Hare hung his head, realizing that his arrogance and overconfidence had cost him the race. From that day on, the animals in the forest never underestimated anyone, no matter how slow or quiet they might seem. The story of Tortoise and Hare became a legend in the forest, a tale of patience, perseverance, and the value of never giving up.